I spoke to Francesca Albanese in Geneva.
I said that the genocide continues because of the impunity that has been granted to Israel, because of surely there is an ideological component, but also I said, I also understand that it's not been stopped because it's profitable, and it's profitable for many. And there is an ecosystem of private interests from arms manufacturers and construction companies, banks, pension funds, goods and services, supply chain, even universities connected to this. There has always been an economy of occupation inside Israel, exploiting resources, taking land, displacing and replacing Palestinians, that has turned into genocidal, and the profits have been enormous. I think that the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange has grown of 170% since October 2023. It has amassed $220 billion in until May last year, and $70 billion in the last month alone.
Francesca,
until May this year, and 70 billions this year, this month.
How important is it for people around the world to know that companies they use quite regularly, like their banks, Barclays, like Amazon, that almost everyone uses, are deemed to be complicit in what is an ongoing genocide in Gaza? Because those of us who have been covering the war since it started, even the occupation before then, know what's been happening there. But over the last almost 2 years, the rest of the world has been able to see it.
I have to admit that this has been a shock for me as well as a person, because, you know, I've been investigating companies whose services I use myself, but also I didn't have such a clear idea that I have now on how there is an entire system of interconnected interests that allows all together to hold the occupation tight and stable, and including as it commits crimes. So I think that as it was for me, all the more for ordinary people, knowing what how their own contributions have been used to maintain and made possible the crimes that have been committed is shocking. But for sure, I can tell you, if Palestine was a crime scene, it would bring, it would carry the fingerprints of all of us. But think, for example, how many of us are going on holiday these days using online platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com. These two companies have continued to advertise properties in settlements, in illegal colonies, of the stolen land, despite the documentation of their crimes, despite being put on notice. So they continue to participate in these with knowledge and intent. And this is why today each person has the power to say no to this and to put these companies in the line, and they need to not to contribute to these crimes.
Does it come down to people doing that, people all around the world, or does it come down to countries who can then say, we are going to sanction Israel, we are going to boycott, we are not going to work in certain aspects, which is exactly what happened during apartheid South Africa? But the difference here would be the fact that Israel is supported by the United States, arguably the most powerful country in the world.
I would say the two most remarkable differences are that apartheid South Africa has never resorted to genocide against the non-white population. Israel has committed crimes after crimes, war crimes, because colonies are a war crime. Forced displacement of the Palestinians, which has been ongoing for decades. This is a crime. This is a crime against humanity. Apartheid is a crime against humanity. So Israel has been nurtured by the impunity that has been granted by member states. So make no confusion, the first responsibility is of member states. And of course, the other difference with apartheid South Africa is that the member states are defending Israel even in the face of the most severe and cruel, sadistic crimes. Look at that thing that we have the nerve to continue to call the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. This is a joint criminal enterprise. We shouldn't be calling humanitarian foundation because there is nothing humanitarian about that thing. But of course, companies are also responsible. The financial sector has historically escaped responsibility. But today, in 2025, this is a defining moment to make it stop, and Palestine is providing a test for this change, as the genocide of the Jewish people was through the post-Holocaust industrial trials, and as apartheid South Africa was for the reparations the company had to offer to many because of their profiting from their exploitation, I mean, of course, of non-white South Africans.
How can companies be held accountable? Because if this case at the ICJ brought by South Africa does find Israel guilty of genocide, we know it could take a while. Could these companies then be complicit legally in all of that and be held accountable in some way?
I really don't know how this misunderstanding continues to be held. The International Court of Justice has recognized the risk of genocide, the plausibility of genocide, since January last year. And this is what has put on notice both member states and companies. So we don't need to wait for a court to conclude that companies have an obligation to disengage. Also, the International Court of Justice has concluded the occupation is unlawful. So you see, there we have a clear court decision, and it imposes an obligation upon state not to recognize the legal consequences, not to aid, not to assist a state which commits such a criminal endeavor. So the laws is there, the red lines are there. So what's coming next is that, yes, companies must be held accountable, either before courts, like through judicial proceedings, or, and this is a very easy way in a capitalist system like ours, where economies and markets are globally connected, by voting through their wallet. So stopping and putting your money, your saving in banks that refuse to unplug from supporting an economy of occupation which has turned into genocidal. Stop using financial products of BlackRock and Vanguard, for example. Stop supporting universities that have crushed protesters so as to preserve the financial interest and investment in Israeli universities, which are enmeshed with the military industry. And again, we have power. We have power. It's with each and every one of us. It's just about connecting conscience and power. Truth doesn't demand intelligence. Truth demands principles and courage.